To start off, the way usually characters are made for games involve different disciplines, and all the disciplines that are affecting character art the most are game design, art direction, technical art, and animation. Um, Today I'll be focusing on the process of that involve game design, art direction, and character art, as in prototyping a character. I'll be using as an example a face uh, and how I approach coming up with ideation for faces, and the same process applies to a full character or a full creature depending on what you want to do. So the general character art pipeline that we use involve three main areas. The first area being prototyping. The second part of the process requires you to create a representative or beauty version of your character. At that point, you are not really researching design or visuals, but you're bringing together the product in the game, and you could even ship it as it is. It's like the minimum quality it would have, it would need to be shippable. It will also help art direction and all the other departments to align with the look, with the feel, with the colors, with whatever requirements they might have in consideration with the character. And then when all that part of the production is done, you have the final shippable asset, and this is basically the time when you polish and polish and polish until you get the most amazing thing you can get in the time you have. Um, so prototyping, what does that mean? The way we approach it here is we create white boxes, usually in the beginning, or gray boxes. Sometimes when you jump out of the gun and just ignore the simplicity of a white box. White box can be a simple primitive that is used to say, oh, there is a character and that character is variation 1 or variation 2 or whatever. It can be a group of primitive, or it can be a little bit more advanced, and then you get to the point that of it to be a gray box. What's what we call gray box is it's not a box anymore. It can be a very rough sculpt of your character put together with some textures on it, very rough textures, and to get all that stuff as quick as possible in the engine, to get all your basic setup, and also figure out your general look and function. So if it's an NPC and AI will be developed for it, or a VFX needs to be added to it, you need an asset that is looking close enough to what it could be. It allows you to get rid of dependencies. So animation, tech art will need something to test their rig. The animators will need, even if it's a basic asset with a basic not polished rig, they can already start posing him, do animation, get a feel of how the character will animate in the game. So this is what the prototyping phase is, and it's very important. Most of the development is actually prototyping, and then you have the polishing phase that is very, very late. If I go past, it's just a quick example of what representative and beauty means. You have like a game model topology with LODs and representative textures, setup, lockdown, and the final shippable, which is like everything's final. Well, it's never really final until it's shipped, but point is you only detail stuff here. At this point you go into really, really high detail sculpting, very, very advanced textures, special effects, shaders, and all that. The example I'm going to give you today, let's go into full moon. So I have like a couple of white box heads here. Yes, they are white box, and I'm going to show you how to get that. So the idea here is like to create different faces, many characters, um, to try to figure out like the feel, the look that we want to go for. They don't have eyebrows as you can see. I didn't bother making them. Might give them one eventually, which is part of the white box phase as well. But if you get closer, you start seeing it's very rough. It's not. It's in the detail that you see here, like the skin part and all that. None of it is sculpted. It's all procedural, like height map that I've done really quickly with noise and turn them into normal map and overlay them on the mesh, just to get a feel of the how much noise you need, how much how much strength they need to be to look, to get the right look in the engine. So the important part is at the end, the end results, which is the game in the engine running how it should. And so you need to get that sorted as fast as possible, and not just be outside of the engine for most of your development, and then when you get into the engine you realize that actually it doesn't work, and you spend a lot of time wasted doing tweaks and all that without really figuring what's wrong. So here you can see, I figure out the skin colors. I got like different tones that I'm going for, like you have brown skin and dark skin and deep skin, and I'm trying to get the correct values while keeping PBR, and at the same time the gloss values, all that you need to move forward without really worrying about anything. It also allows art direction to easily understand the look, and they can choose, let's say, okay, I gave him like it's actually 4 faces, and with a lot of duplicates and different hair do basically, and some beard, some without, some and then they can say, okay, oh, I like this guy, right? He looks badass, and he's got like this very very strong shapes, and you can take this guy, you take screenshot, or you give it to one of the concept artists, and he's gonna take like a couple of shots from the side like that or whatever, and he's gonna do paint over, and then he's gonna say, oh, this guy, if you add longer hair or rasta, or if you give him a big scar here, or basically they can paint over it, and then they give me that concept, and I can easily, very fastly adjust based on the concept, give it back to them, and the sign-off process happens much quicker that way. If you get a concept and then you try to create it in 3D, and usually 2D concepts don't always work in 3D, there's always something off and you have to interpret stuff, you waste a lot more time, and time is kind of in the essence when you do the prototyping. You want as many options as possible, as fast as possible, and iteration between you, concept art, and art direction. It's also at this stage, because I'm using a base mesh that we use for all our heads, for NPC's head in this case. It's not really high-end cinematic head. It's going to be just an NPC guy, and the tech art team can use that. They already have a rig specifically for that topology, and we can really quickly have facial animation as well tested. And I put an expression here because early stage and all that, but eventually this will be a little bit more neutral, a little bit more like this guy, with maybe the mouth a little bit more open, and all the expression, all the shape and all that will be done in animation. So let's see how we can do that. Again, I'm not gonna go and give a tutorial on how to sculpt, how to texture and all that, but I'm gonna give you a high level overview of how I do things to get this really quickly. So each one of those faces is fairly fast to do. The first one is usually the longest, because this guy, very generic, very young, very smooth and all that. I then made the different skin tone, the eye color that works with each skin tone. The sclera color as well needs to be adjusted, the brightness of it, to fit with the skin tone. You can't tell here because they look like they are the same, but actually they are not the same. This one is brighter than this one, and this one is even brighter than this one. But because they work with each skin tone, it looks like they are the same, but they're not. Yeah, and that's just a question of adjusting textures to work with each other. So when you've done one, you can start making many faces as different as you want, as close as you want, because they are very sketchy. You can do 2 to 3 heads a day, and yeah, you give yourself a couple of days, you do a dozen or so faces, you start making hairdos, put them together how you feel like that, and then get concept art involved. Sometimes I would even get involved concept art way before art direction, so I do not waste the time of the art director. With the feedback from concept art, you choose the ones that you guys like. You can even get involved with the other character artist, and if this one get a 7 out of all of the others, and this one's got a 3, you might want to choose this one and this one or whatever, and move forward. And then you present the one that you like and the one that most of the guys in the team like to the art director, and most of the time he tends to like it because everybody likes it as well. So I've already done a couple of faces as you can see, so I'm going to just jump into ZBrush. I'll also show you how I set up some basic materials. Okay, so this is my basic material. Let's put one that shows a bit more volume. ZBrush is really good to prototype things and to detail stuff. The only downfall is the perspective, maybe. It doesn't really give you a very good sense of how depth of field and how the shapes are actually related to each other in a perspective environment, but you can see that in the engine. This is why it's really cool to come here, check. I've got a focal here, a fairly cinematic focal. If you go here in camera, FOV, you have usually the 55, which is like the game FOV that most game have. It's really strong FOV, and even you can get it to a point where it's like fish eye, so you're not going to get a really good look at proportions. So the one that I would suggest is 31. 31 is a number that basically equate to something like a 90 FOV in real camera lens, and this is usually you try to find a focal that works for cinematics, that is used in the movies, and it's usually a fairly almost orthographic kind of a look, but here you go. When you look at it, you have a little bit of distortion, but it's very realistic, and 31 is equivalent to 90, I think. We did the math a while back, and we use that in cinematics when you have like facial, not super close up, but when you have when you're focused on the face. If I change the camera here, for example, to 55, which is the game, and you get first of all you get that effect. If you get too close, the camera clips, but if you are here, you have like a lens effect going on, like a fisheye, a slight fisheye thing, and it just distorts a little bit the face, so it's really difficult to judge. So when you check a character and when you present it, 31 minimum as a base, 45 is a good one as well, and you should be fine like that. So you can see how the face looks like a very portrait, a little bit rim light on the back, and it helps sell the character. Okay, back to ZBrush. The way I usually start is I've got like a skull that I sculpted. It's handmade, so it's not like a scan or something. So it's probably not like the most accurate thing, but it's good enough to start. Okay, see, it's like a rough sketch, a rough sculpt here. I've done most of what you need to get like facial anatomy, and you add the muscles to that. And I usually use that as a reference. This one is a Caucasian, so I need to turn it into a more African type skull, or Asiatic, and then I should have enough to start any kind of faces. I have like also those working proportion grades here, and the depth of the flesh between the skin and the bone. You can find those online if you search. Very easy to find. And I place those, and as you can see, there's a lot of flesh above the bone. If I guess it's mostly for a generic healthy person. It varies, of course. All of that is just a start, right? There's people with much stronger jaws, much broader cheeks, and you have those that have very thin amount of flesh, and others that are really large. So, but this is a really good start and a really good eye opener when you work on faces. So I always have that on the back, especially when I do animation as well, and I try to put poses so they relate to the bone underneath, and it's not just, you're not losing volumes and all that. The topology I'm using is like a generic topology that we have. Normally I would start with, when I do personal work, I would start with like just a sphere or a box, a cube, because it's less constraining. You just come up with things. And like this one, you already have an eye shape, you already have a mouth, and it can be sometimes difficult to move things around and come up with cool organic designs. So whatever I do that can be directly used in the engine, because I already have a UV setup with textures, and this face already have a basic rig, and it's very easy to just prototype and fast. And when you are done with the face, you can just go and do a couple more. I'm using reference on the net, right? Here, there's a lot of very interesting faces there, and I've got a book as well, Heads by Alex Kaiser. It's got a lot of really good face reference, and shows you that it's not just one type of face and one type of skull, and you can really create anything as long as you keep the realism in your sculpt. Yeah, so I also have like a basic pair of eyes. You just very simple sphere with a bit of a bulge for the cornea, and this is basically what I use as a starter, and for NPC. So if it was a cinematic fade, the base mesh that I'm using is a little bit denser than this one, and the eyeball has a different kind of approach. The eyeball doesn't have the cornea bulging, it's actually a sphere, and everything is done in shader, like the faking of the cornea, the iris, the lens distortion, all the effect that you can get with the eye shader. But the eye shader is something quite complicated to set up. You need like the eyeball, you need an eye overlay, you can add also the wetness overlay. It's quite expensive in comparison to the rest, in time and in complexity. So for this guy, we will do NPC type. Eventually, for part 2 or 3 of the tutorial, we can go into the real cinematic thing, take one of the face and turn it into a cinematic character. So here we have a face then, and I did a rough sketch, a rough sculpt of it. You can see there's no pores, there's nothing. It's a lot of things are not resolved. You know, there's a lot of things that are not really working. It's a little bit distorted, but it's okay. We're not trying to get an amazing piece of art here right now. We're just trying to get faces, like characters. Yeah, there's a lot of really like reference online. You can find like convicts, for, mug shots, and I use that a lot to get like those stuff more mean looking guy, and for civilians and all that, same, a lot of research on regular faces, more charismatic faces or hero faces. You need to make the distinction between them when you make your face. Do you want it to be a main character, a bad guy type character, a civilian type character, to keep things realistic and not go into the cartoon realm. But again, sketching part, prototyping part, doesn't really matter if you go a little bit off, because a lot of paint over will be done on the concept art side, and eventually when you come back to it and you spend actually the time on the faces that have been chosen, you will know that it's worth spending the time in making it look as detailed, as real, as interesting as possible. In this case I'm even working symmetrically, as you can see. I break it a little bit here and there, but I try not to go too far in asymmetry as far as it stands. I'm trying to get a good and interesting face look, and then giving charisma and all that is the next step. Um, if I can get a face that looks interesting for a specific type of character that inspire the concept artist or the art director, I'm good. I'm good in the sense of I'll be happy because I know that when I move forward with it, I didn't waste so much time on it. And if it's not accepted, if it's not something that people like, I can just bin it. It's no problem. It's half a day at most. Sometimes it's an hour or two. That's okay. It's you're less attached and it's less precious to you. So let's say you have this face and you're happy with this guy and this guy, and you want to get them in the engine, and you want to do that fast. So you have two ways. Either you export the high res here straight into Max and get into the engine. The engine will eat it no problem. It loves polygons. It's really like powerful. You can toss it millions of polygons and the engine will be just fine. The problem with that is it might take a while to get it to Max and export. So what I usually do is I go into the low poly, make a world space normal map, get the low poly in Max, send it into CRYENGINE and set up the material and done. I've already done that, so it's really fast, but I'm going to walk you through how you would do it if it's the first time. So I'm going to open Max here just to show you. The faces are already there. If I hide everything else and I just get this, okay. So right now it's got very shiny materials because it has the actual engine shaders. You have like the Crytek shader here, so it's really I can play with the gloss for now just to show you. Okay, so I have like some hair here as well, as you can see, like a beard. If you look at it, it's just very rough geometry as well. I'll show you how to get that done. It's to add like some example of what it could be other than just a bald beardless dude. And here we go. So the approach is you bring your model here, you set up a material for it. I'll show you how to do that. You apply those materials and then you export it, right, using the CRYENGINE exporter. I assume all of that is already figured out on your side, so I'm not going to show you how to install stuff and all that. There's plenty out there already about the subject. But the way I usually work is I have a dummy, here, just a simple dummy that you can get in the helpers dummy, and I put everything that I want to be a package, like a face, eyes, the beard of that face, and link it to it, as you can see here, ting. And then I export this with export fill per node and a couple of options here. If you have vertex color, but it's not really necessary. It's just on all the time, so I leave it. 30-bit precision is not really necessary there at this stage. I often use it for faces, like cinematic faces. It's not even necessary to have for NPCs unless you get the close shot for it. What it basically does is it makes sure that the unit precision is 32-bit instead of normal, which is a lot lower. And what it does is, for things like you can't really tell, but for areas that have a little bit more vertices, dark close, and you want it to be very clean and smooth, it makes sure that they are not displaced. Yeah, if you turn that off when you export, the compression that happened on the mesh and precision basically move vertices a little bit. You know, you can, and this basically avoids that. So if you have like a super high-end face and let's say if I put a turbo smooth on it, yeah, okay, and you have that like super smooth and super clean, right? If you don't put 32-bit, you might have some error in position. So it's not really important for NPCs, as I said, but when you have like a cinematic and you have a big close-up and you have use that. Use that, it's gonna help you loads. Yeah. So that's what we're gonna get, and then we'll export all that, and we'll get into the engine, and then you're gonna get this basically. Yeah. Okay. So back to the brush, and I'm gonna hide this guy. Okay, I'm gonna hide the other guy. Okay, I've got them there just so you can see and speed up the process. So we're gonna take, it's got the same eyes, so I'm not gonna bother exporting them each time, but you go to your lowest resolution. Sorry for that. Oh. Lowest resolution, and if you have set up Go ZBrush for Max or Maya or whatever you're using, just click visible. It's going to export basically just your visible object in Max. And see, okay, take a couple of seconds. Yeah, scale is a bit moved up, but ignore that. Okay, so it probably didn't do it for the face because I already have it done here. Yeah, so let's pretend, which one was it? No, this one. Let's pretend it exported everything properly. So they are here, and it usually just exports as well the textures that comes in ZBrush. So we have our model. The first thing that I do is I make sure that it's all one smoothing group. So put smooth 1. Okay, it's to avoid any artifact on, you know, because the ZBrush tend to bring, depending on your groups, or sometimes it just hardens certain. He just makes different smoothing groups, and that just take care of that. Collapse that stuff. Now, the material setup is the next thing. It already has one, but let's start from scratch here. Poop. I'll give it to him. No need to go here and start making materials here. A lot of people do that. They go and they just create their material in Max, and you can do that, but it's a bit of a waste of time, and you might as well, and it creates some problems as well. So unless you want to have like a special look in Max and you want to have that, that's fine. But if you're solely doing it for CRYENGINE like I'm doing now, go in CRYENGINE and do it here. So we bring up the material editor. Let's make it a little bit of space. Okay, ignore all the other stuff there. Delete it. What happened there? Go back here. Voila. So you have now that part and that part, and here you can already see one material is already set up. So if you want to create a new one, you just start a new item, and then you can make one. So let's do that. Add new item. I'm gonna you find the folder where you want to place it. In my case, I'm gonna phase 4, and I'm gonna call it phase 4 B005, because this one, the one that I'm gonna do is number 5. And here right now you notice empty material with basic setup. So turn it into a multi material. Oops. Convert to multi material. Now it's a multi material, so it's like Max, right? You can have multiple ID, and each ID can be applied for various parts of your head or your character. In that case, I'm going to use a ID1 for the face. So let's say I'm going to rename it just face, and I'm going to make one for hair. But first, okay, where did it go? Okay, sometimes. Okay, face, hair. So we're gonna give it a quick hairdo as well. Okay. So what do we do now? As you can see, there's no texture, there's nothing. For now, you just select the material. We're gonna deal with everything later as we do them. You go into Max again, and you keep selecting the material you had before where you want this material to appear. Then you go into the CRYENGINE exporter. Oops. And go at the very bottom, sync material. Yeah, and click on the button. It should, obviously it will not let me do it. Let's see. I know why. It's because I have two engines open. It doesn't quite know which one. Let's just close the other one. Back to our material. So, is this one? Yeah. Okay. Select it. Max. Sync material. Nah, this works. So this material in the scene, you just say yes. Do you want to keep the material name local based on your situation? You might say yes or no. In my case, it's no. And then now you have the material set up like in the engine, right? And all you have to do now is apply that to those two guys. Make sure that both have material ID 1, because I'm using the same texture. If you had the eye separate, you would use material ID 2 or 3 or whatever for your eye. But in my case, it's an NPC, everything is into one texture, so I don't need one mat. Up. So now they are set up. Next thing is the dummy. So very easy, as I said before. You go, let me just unattach those two and make a dummy. Get it into 0. Let me hide the other ones. Quite a few in the scene. So you have the dummy. you give it a name. Face 005 in this case. I'm gonna call it 05's 05's export. Yeah. So just so. And then you have like your 5 and the eyes. Take those two guys and you link them to this dummy. Now you have your dummy So now we have our dummy, the eyes, the face, and the other dummy, and the material assigned to them. So once you've got that, it's as easy as going here, the CRYENGINE exporter, add selected by only selecting the dummy, and make sure you have your previous setup done properly, and you have your max file saved in the folder where you want it to be exported, and export. It's probably doing an autosave, so I'm just gonna wait a second. Okay, so it's done it. If you go to show in Explorer, you see our CGF is here. Yeah, good. So it's one, as you can see, it's two objects in a dummy, and it's exported as one because it's exporting the dummy and it's considering it one object, because you put export file per node, and it's not exporting everything else that is in the scene as well, which is really good. That's usually a setup I'm often using, and it's fast and clean. So now that we have that, let's bring it into the engine. So if back into the engine, I'm gonna move down the texture material, boom, move back up, maybe put a camera that is a little bit more easy to work with. I'm gonna put actually the 45 one as well, just for ease of work. So now, as you can see, I've got already a couple of them there, and what I'm using is AnimObject. I think in the new engine it's not called AnimObject anymore, it's in a different branch, and it's like Basic Object or something like that, or Geo Object. Either way, right now all you have to do is go into Create Object, Entities, Physics, AnimObject. You can use a basic entity, you can use another, but the thing with AnimObject is, as its name says, you can put an anim on that. So if you have a character and you quickly rigged it and quickly animated it, you can, and here you have the animations, you can get the animation from the character editor and put them in the animation folder here, little bucket, and with loop and playings, and it's going to basically make it move. It's going to be animated in loops, so you can change the speed and all that. Very handy for test characters and all that. So you take that anim object, you select, drag and drop it, Control Shift so you can move it around. I'm going to use P for it to come. Okay, it's here. Okay, it's because I got grid on. I was wondering what's going on. The grid is on. It's actually quite handy for moving in steps. We don't want the grid. It's a new version, I mean it's not the latest version of the engine, but toggle snap and to get off here. Oh, you got it like that. It's right here. You can toggle snap angle as well, and scale. I mean, angle is the one that I use the most. So you can just have a snapping angle with the degrees with like wax, quite handy. So now we have the anim object and it's empty. You go into the model here in Lua property. You have like model. Right now it's a Winstock CGA, not working, but and you go get your asset where it was. So faithful in here. Source, and it's max. Okay, so now I got the faces, and it was GM face export, and straight away to appear here. And as you can see, it has replaced me. It's because your material has replaced me, but as you can see, it went directly to the material you assigned in max, which is really good by exporting it with the material assigned in max that way with the sync feature, because it's embedded in the CGF or in the CGF, yes, and whoever takes it, he won't have to set up the material on it. It's going to automatically go to that material we set up. So what we need to do is basically give it a basic diffuse normally to get it reproduced. So if you would start normally, you would use like a very simple default when I don't have the texture yet. I've got textures, but I'm going to show you without texture. So I go into default. Okay, and in here you're going to have a couple of textures. Usually use white. Open. I'm going to copy the category and do the same thing for the hair, so you don't have the okay, white, and now it's white. Yeah, let's get closer to it with our nice 4 of 31. Okay, so you can see the cool thing is you see the shadow, the AO and all that. It's a good way to debug things as well. No normal maps, nothing, just basic. And you can play at this stage as well. When I'm early development, before even doing a texture, I tested this way. I go in here and I try to give it some color, right? I say okay, what's the value for skin, and you can do it this way as well. And I do it with when it's very early. With the okay, I'm gonna pause a little bit. Okay, sorry for that. So I was saying I would use that as a very basic to get colors in the engine that works, yeah. And then I would try to transfer that into Photoshop. So it's usually, I mean, you have like the values here, but it's usually a little bit darker in Photoshop to get the same result here. You know, and same for specular. I mean, I would set up a proper specular values for PBR for skin 51 in this case, and then you can play with the gloss in it, and you would set up all that here. You would play around and say, okay, that gloss is pretty good as a base for a general look. It's all in one texture, so the eyes obviously get the gloss. So I would try to find a gloss for the eye, which is okay. It's about 200, yeah, for the eye, and about, I don't know, 80 to 100 for the skin as a base, and 130 something for the skin as like a max more or less value. So within those two values, with this method, you can just find very quickly values that will work for your face, and then you can send them up later on the texture, and you know you're gonna get, you know, your base values, and like you can see here, it's not as glossy as here or there. Even though it's rough, it's a good start, and you can get that really quickly. So this is how I get my base values. Now let's put them back to the defaults. So usually, yep, yep, max gloss, and basically all that stuff is max. And as you can see, it's all crazy, right? But it's okay. Same for the hair, but the hair will be different. We'll do it later when we have something to play with. So that would be my base values. Let me just go back there. Yeah. Now what we're going to do is to transfer those values into Photoshop and make our basically the beginning of our textures. So how do I do that? Let's go to Photoshop. Let's Photoshop here. Okay. So as you can see, I already have that all sorted out. So I'm going to first quickly show you how I would set it up. So I usually work 4096 as a base, no matter what. If it's cinematics, sometimes I can even go up to 8K, but for now that's more than enough. So first thing I do is don't take off the lock. Okay, is like we have actions for that, but I'm going to show you manually. Is I do different group, so one for the diffuse, one for the spec, one for the gloss, one for the normal map. Okay. Sometimes I add one more for alpha or 8 or whatever, but we were not going to use that, so all we need is that. I often have also a folder for masks, but that's something I do much later, not for prototyping. Masks and all that is for when you start doing the proper texture, the proper sculpt and all that. So later I might show you that. I give them some color, so orange for the diffuse, always orange, green for the spec, violet for the gloss, and blue for the DDM. I usually I capture IDMAC or your UVs, so I already have it here, so I'll just pinch it. It's very easy. In Max okay, so here you go. So now I have my UVs. The UVs for the face, and I also have the UVs for the eye, for the eyeball. I'm going to show you how you do it for the eyeball. So you select your object. You have different. I have different things. I usually use text tool. It's like a script for Max that allows you to do a lot of things that are pretty handy. For those that are not using it, you can just go into your UVs, select them, and in the tool render UV template, you select the resolution you want, C6. Okay, you can also make like ID map if you have like multiple objects and all that, but in this case it's just one object, so it doesn't matter. Render UV template, and here it is. Oops. Okay, let's get that a little bit more. So as you can see, my UVs have been rendered. Okay, you save that as whatever format you want. Okay, in my case TGA, and where are we? Okay, so let's just put it here. So UVs, boom. I'm putting 30 because I'm probably gonna get the alpha out of it, but whatever works for you. Close that up, go back to Photoshop, open okay, is it this one? No. Wasn't it in Max that I saved it? Let's go back. Do it again. Okay, 4096. And that template. Save. Oh, it is there. So where is it? Ah, I don't know why he went for in torso 3. So let's just take this guy and go back to torso 4. Ah, not torso, head. Max, put it there. Boom, done. And UVs, get that. Let's see, did he do the channel? No, in this case he didn't bother. Okay, never mind. And passed it here, and now you have both. Like if you put it into screen mode, it basically gonna overlay itself. Now let's start with the simple thing that we said before. So now we have those two. What you can do is make masks out of it. So if I do continuous, put back to normal, do that, invert my selection, here's my mask. So I'll put a solid color here with a mask. So let's give it like a basic white for now, something like that. Even if it's grayscale, doesn't matter. Create eye, and then I'm gonna do the same thing for the skin. And for the face, actually, it's easier to make like a need mask, probably. So let's go and edit UV. Okay, this one. I'm gonna use my. I need to select the face. I'm gonna use my render texture map floater, and here you got like different options. We need to make sure that here you got the resolution you want, 1996, 4096, and what I want is gonna do that. This is probably gonna take a couple of seconds. Okay, it should go to clipboard, so let's see if it did. Control V, and it did. So now you can select color base, hide it again, and here if you do solid color and give it like a some kind of a skin tone, yeah, and put the wireframe on screen as well, so you have both. Now just get rid of this one, screen, and you have your base. Now what you can see, like this black background, so I'm just gonna make a solid color, give it maybe this basic skin that you have as well, but in the background you can make it a little bit darker if you want, for visibility. So now you have your UVs, anything, and your base texture. Now if I save this as a diff, create diff, and in textures I'm gonna call this one 005, yeah, diff, yeah, no alpha, nothing, so all good. You can lower to the resolution you think it might end up in the game, let's say 1K, and here you go, you have your base for the albedo. Good working is, and good habit to take is having the histogram out there, and check in advanced, what is it? Let's say expanded view. Actually, it's already done. You can check the mean, or median, basically, which is basically the intensity of the texture, and you can tell it's really high. For Caucasian, you would need something. Normally it should update here. Let's see. Colors, no. Okay. If you do that, okay, it's updated here. It goes down based on what it says. So let's. And what you want to do is get it to closer to 90 for Caucasian, but yeah, became a bit. Okay, I'm gonna leave it at that, and we're gonna see how it looks first. Okay, the eyes is there, I mean the eyeball. Okay, save that. Let's go into the engine. Let's bring that in diffuse. So was in our character folder. textures. Okay, boom. And as you can see, it didn't do much. It's because our let's do it this way. Our specular color is super high, and we haven't done a specular yet. So if we do a specular now, and most of it is 51 anyway. Most of it is in the same range. I mean, we could use a slightly different one for the eye, I mean, but to simulate a bit more like water and reflection. Water is usually 43 value specular, and we can actually do that. Let's give it. But this is not just water, so if we give it 47, because like the sclera or the cornea have slightly different values, but it's not really important. I mean, what's important is you get in the ballpark. And later on, I mean, in some cases you don't even need a specular map. I'm doing one because eventually I will need one, because there's going to be dirt and mud and blood and all kind of stuff on the face, or let's say you have sweat, or you have some cavity in there with dirt. You might want to add it into the specular and to get that extra detail. But the most important texture being the gloss when it comes to surface. It doesn't matter as much, but what matters is the values. Excuse me. And here we go. So we have our specular. Let's save it. Specular, always save it. Well, as a general rule, save it at a lower resolution than your albedo or normal map. The highest should be your normal map, then your albedo, and then your specular. So let's say alpha bit 512 in this case. It's saved. Let's go into the engine and bring it. Actually, no, that's the normal map. Okay, up. Usually, I should remember your last folder. So let's go in there and use selector specular. Et voilà. So now you have white and your skin tone. So as you can see, it might be a little bit dark if you want Caucasian skin, but it's good in there. In my case, I mean, I was doing different African type skin, so this is what we're gonna do, and I'll show you the setup on my final textures, but I mean final prototype textures. So as you can see, it wasn't a lot of work. It was fairly easy to get it, and like it's missing a lot, and but this is the first step. This is the gloss. The gloss comes from the normal map. So how do you do with the normal map when you don't have one, right? So let's start with making the basic color for the normal map, which is normally, let's see, it's 128 to 55 to 55. No, that's one of the other. So it's 255 to 55. 8. Nope. 8. 28 to 55. Yeah, that's one. I always mix the numbers, but that's your base normal map texture. So the color that actually works with normal of the base is the ground one. So I use this, and I'm gonna give a quick gloss as well. So the gloss that value, if you remember, that we found here were between 90 to 130 for the skin and 200 for the eye. Yeah, let's give it a shot. Solid color, let's put it to 90 something. That's gonna be the base. Select the mask of your eyeball, do the same thing, solid color, 200. Okay, more or less. Now you take that. You can use a script to do that, but oops. You can just merge the texture with Photoshop, and then go into the alpha, create an alpha, past, and now you have your gloss in the alpha of your normal map. Save your normal map. 005 DNA with alpha ticked in. Same. Nowhere. In this case, I wouldn't even go 2K. You know, 2K would be overkill. 1K, like the texture, the albedo is fine as well. So let's leave it at that. Eventually, I mean, it's not 1K like the prototype with 1K, but while I'm doing the prototype, I'm also setting my folder structure, my texture naming convention, and everything that is needed, my PSD file for the next step, which is representative, and then for the next step, which is final. It's a lot of things you're taking out away. I know a lot of people like working like messy and all that. I like clearing all that stuff out first, and then it's much faster to iterate, much faster. So you can say that. After that, do whatever you want. But we have our 3 base textures now. Let's load those two, that one in here. So if I go here, it should. No, it's still. It's one of the thing. Not really finally. Here you go. It's there. And I open it. So it's a flat normal map, so it's not affecting the surface. We don't have a normal map yet, but you can see our base value. So why is it not correct? It's because right now our smoothness is still 122. You need to put it to max. And now here you go. You have your 100 value for glossiness and 200 value for your eyeball. Yeah. Here you can see I've got like a couple of options here. You can bring them by getting right click in here on the band here and click view modes. Yeah, if you take it off, view modes, and with that you can check your basic texture. So you have like the albedo here. You can see this is the actual color of the albedo. You can have like your reflectance, specular, so you can see slight difference. Smoothness, your gloss map, yeah, and your normal map, right? Very handy to check if when you have an issue with your texture or your model. Sometimes it's one of the textures, and it's much easier to debug this way. And then you have a lighting model, translucency if you have a translucency map. You don't have the sun, so it doesn't matter. This SSS, subsurface scattering, that's another thing we need to add. And the specular validation. So what it does is it shows you if your speculars are in the ballpark. So if it's blue, it's too low; orange, too high, unless it's a metal, right? Pink, just valid for oxidized metal rust. This is interesting. No, it's a quartz, so I don't know why it says that. Must be a little bit broke today on this build. Never mind. So we have all that. All our setup is correct. All our setup is well done. You have like all your basic lighting setting here to max, and everything is in the textures. As I said before, if I didn't have a specular, I would just get rid of the specular texture and use this. So you save in memory, texture memory, but yeah, you lose on details or whatever if you have a complex asset. But if it's a very simple character, you don't even need it. So just go there, specular value, put your value, done. Now, next thing that I need is the SSS. So we have a skin here, and we have an option to have SSS. So right now, I'm using the Illum shader. I'm not even using the human skin shader. The difference between the Illum and the human skin shader, I could jump straight to it, right? Is that it has translucency multiplier. So basically, what it does is it tries to simulate um, translucency, like, you know, if you have like the thickness of your ear and you have a light behind and you see like the red, you know, the blood vessel underneath through the ear. That's basically what it does. Quite frankly, you don't see that much unless you're on cutscene and you have like strong light on the back on that, so I don't use it for NPCs, so we're gonna stick to Illum. Aside from that, it's the exact same shader. And you've seen like the shadows were doing something funny there. Ignore that, a little issue with the shader currently, but on this build, but you shouldn't have that. So to get the SSS working, just go into SS index, and for the skin it's 1.2. Yeah, under 1 is something like I think you have different values in Illum. Like under 1 is like marble, and you have different values. I have to find them out, but for skin it's 1.2 general, as a general thumb rule, and you're gonna get the exact same result as the human skin shader. Yeah. Okay. This one. As you can see, it got like this nice fleshy look now already, and we didn't spend much time. It's very, very fast, and we can bump up a little bit the skin glossiness and all that. So the next thing I would do is I would like make another color for the gloss of the 130, which is what we said would be invert the mask so you don't see it, and start basically painting in the mask. But I wouldn't do it in Photoshop normally. I would make masks in ZBrush or in Mari and bring them and use them as masks in each color, and the final polish would have like an extra hand painted job on top of it. But let's say you want to make the nose a little bit shinier or something, and a little bit more. You just choose the area that you want, and then just paint them. So I'm just going to show you really quickly. Then we go into the. When you're done with that, you can use that for the wet part of the spec and put a slightly different value, like a little bit less if it's a little bit of water, if it's oil you're trying to mimic on the skin, and do the same thing on the skin. So there's the gloss. I'm going to put it in the gloss channel, alpha, up, now it's there. I'm gonna do the selection and brighten a little bit the skin in that area, so solid color again. Right now I'm just using solid color instead of like just because I don't want to spend time in it, you know. So I'm gonna do save the color with this brighter area, you know, sun bleacher, whatever, when it's for rocks and just skin, and you can see, hop, you get the value here. Obviously you have to be a little bit more careful with it. I just basically painted it on it like a boot, but what you would do normally is, like you can see here, you have it's very subtle, yeah, and let's just turn it off for now. And if you're not happy with the color, you just can easily change it by just putting values, you know. Just work with values at first. Later on, when you have all your values correct, you can play with, you know, the artistic freedom, but at least you would have your range right. So let's give it back. So let's save the normal map that we've done with the gloss. Okay. Okay. Let's see, it's gonna be very harsh and all that, but what did it do there? Oh, my textures. Oh, they are here. Okay, sometimes it doesn't update the texture. You just need to do it again. I'll delete the DDS. Let's try again. Let's try another one. Yeah, sometimes you have to restart the engine for the DDS. And there's an issue with the DDS right now, but normally it works. What it does is you have like a shinier part, and yeah, the rest basic. And then what I would do is just quickly make noises. So I would make texture, make noise. Actually, let's just make a basic black texture, noise, add noise. Okay. And I'm gonna use that as a mask. Okay, for a new color. It is maybe, let's say, darker and more saturated than the other one, and then I would pass the noise in here, and you start having like some pearly looking thing. And basically this is how I build the basic skin pore, you know, skin colors and variation. And I do a couple of those, and I duplicate this one. Sometimes I would invert and change maybe the mask intensity and change it to even darker, right? And then you do I would do a different number of those noise, you know, a couple of different ones, run them and do the same thing again and build a complexity over it. The last bit would be what I showed you before, like the basically the color intensity, brightness intensity. So in this case I would probably put in a lighten mode and slowly paint the mask, you know, using maybe either the normal map or the UVs as a base, and obviously put it really low. Needs to be settled, right? And I would paint areas of the skin and start building a little bit more interesting, you know. But again, you do that very quick. You don't really bother in detail. Then you use this noise. I would use this noise as a base as well for DDN normal. So let's say I bring this one here. I would count the values, yeah, and I would use a filter like X normal filter, height to normal. Continue. It's all hacky, right? You get this, right? It's really rough, and I would actually scale it, you know, test, I mean overlay that. There's nothing underneath, but eventually you'd overlay it to your baked normal map at about 20%. So it shouldn't be a high strong thing to start with, and you should get that, and you would save that. And you would save that, and you would have like a basic pore effect. Yeah, let's see if it works again. Yeah, oh, it worked this time. You can't really see because if I go in full screen, you start seeing, see? So you have like a little bit of a noise there. So what I know is it will need to be a stronger intensity and maybe an even higher tiling. I mean less time technically. I'm gonna crop that. So it tells me how big the general pore details could be, and when I do my sculpt, I know I already have a good idea of how it should look and how much depth you want. You know, sometimes people sculpt detail parts, but they don't give them enough strength, or they give it too much strength, and you can figure this out here with a very simple trick. So now you can see, like, I'm starting to get noise going on there, which is not too bad. Obviously it's rough, it's not looking good, but you do a couple of them and you overlay them on top of each other and you get something like that. Yeah, you know, it's again an indication. It is not looking great, it is just an indication. And when you do like screenshot, like it catches, it doesn't look like as plastic as it would, and it gives you an extra step in terms of you know, getting the sign off done and getting the concept out, doing a good paint over of it, you know. And it's very quick, very simple, very fast to do. Yeah, so we've done all that stuff on this texture, and here is the result you'd get for if you go a little bit further. I'm just going to close that and not save it, and because I've got already the thing. So as you can see, I also use the same method. So I have different skin. You know, once you have done with the first ones that I show you, you just duplicate it and make your variations of them, and then you have your texture basically. You know, that's my overlay highlights. And then all I did is duplicate it and make a darker version of the noise that I showed you before. You know, you see the noises that I have. Oops. Okay. And the last thing is the black shadows here, which is basically the area where there is very strong AO, like the nose holes and the ear holes, and I just very simply again made a mask and a texture, and I use it also in the specular and in the gloss. I know the specular is not like a PBR thing, but it really helps. It avoids having, like, you know, those scenes where the guy is speaking and then you see really shiny ear hole or really shiny nose hole. It looks better. It looks more, you know, if I go here and show you, that's kind of without, right? You know, you got like some AO going on it, but with it looks a lot more realistic, and you don't have like no matter the angle you look at it, you don't have like the light from above or underneath picking up the inside of the nose, right? Yeah. So that's but I only do it in this case and inside the mouth as well, for the part that you don't see, like the further part, and you don't want to, like, when he opens his mouth, you don't want everything shiny inside. The AO doesn't always do a great job on its own, and in this case it's okay to break a bit the PBR. It's part that you don't see anyway. And yeah, and eventually you get that. You get like you know, different skin tone or different eye textures. You know, like, I did the same thing with the eyes. I started with a very simple poly paint on the eyeball. You know, it's very easy to do. You just, even at the lower res like that, you can just take a ball, and if I do it here, maybe with a standard brush, RGB, see, you just paint, do the same thing here, first a color that you want, brown, whatever, but which even better is if you make a mask. You know, you make a mask for the iris, a mask for the lens and the sclera, and then you use those masks to basically choose the color of your sclera, the color of your basic iris, the color. You test what you like, and then you add detail on top. Always the same process, which is here. If I show you, I think that's what I did. Yeah, so you see, it's very simple. I try to fake like the light in the eye just for fun, but if I look at the eye, it's a brown eye. You have sclera, you have the iris, and you have the lens. Very simple, and it's just flat colors. just all is in the mask. See, all is in the mask. Then it's your base, and then I added red part around to make it I think it's just a normal texture layer. Can't see where it is right now. It's because I didn't have the right one. Tuk, tuk. Yeah, see, just added a quick paint for colors on top. But as you can see, depending on the skin color, the eye color is adjusted. So if I have like the brown skin, the eye is much lighter. If I have the dark skin, a bit darker, and the deep skin even darker, and with more red going on to balance the values. And that's it for the process. Is very simple, and again, you don't need it to be amazing. Look, it's very rough. It's very, and you don't need to spend much time on it. Just do. The only thing is, I would suggest to be very organized, like I'm doing here. Not excessively organized, but it will help you tweak very quickly. And when you have a version to do after that, you just have to take that and duplicate it, and in 5 seconds you have a new skin color.